Hi, and welcome to She's the Boss, the show that is all about female founders and women doing extraordinary things in business. Now, I'm hoping if you like the episode that you'll go and subscribe to the channel, like, comment, all those great things. But I have to say I'm beside myself with excitement. I actually have a really old friend with me today who has done so many incredible things and now lives in New York. Her name is Sue Fennessy. Now, let me just introduce Sue. When I first met her, I first met her before she even, when we were at school together, but her first business was called Communications in Australia. Then she went on to be the founder of the Frontier Group in Greater China. Then she became co-founder of the Standard Media Index, which I'm going to get her to tell us all about, initials SMI, which people in the media will know about. And for the last 10 years, Sue has been the founder of We Are 8, which is a social media platform I want to know all about. So welcome, Sue.
Thanks, Jules. It's so great to be here and see your gorgeous face.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be interviewing you because you have absolutely been my inspiration and my hero really since we were at school and you just took off. So let's start with what you're doing now, though. Can you tell everyone what We Are 8 is?
Yeah, so it's really born out of, I built a company called Standard Media Index, and we track ad spend across the whole industry. And we were seeing all of this money go to Facebook and Google, $550 billion in ad spend that brands pay Facebook, Google, all the big tech companies.
$550 billion? That's humongous.
Yes, it's a huge, huge ecosystem. So the ad distribution ecosystem is so huge, and yet all of that money was going to middlemen. And we just thought there has to be a better way that rewards, economically empowers people. So what we've built is a platform where now people get paid to watch ads. And so in 5 minutes a day, I can now get ads served to me. I watch them, answer a couple of questions, and I get paid into my PayPal account. And at the same time as I'm watching those ads, I'm also making positive impact. So we're saying this huge ecosystem, put people and purpose at the core, brand, now you can go directly to hundreds of millions of people and reach them directly, pay them to watch your ad, not pay Facebook, and make a donation every time they do it. Weirdly, it's more cost effective and efficient for the brand, but it's better for humanity, Jules.
Yeah, and look, Sue, I know you've always had that at the core of everything that you've done. You've been really passionate about it. So this sounds absolutely amazing, and I really want to help you get it out in Australia because nobody really wants to watch ads if they're not relevant to them, and if they are, to be paid for it would be absolutely schmick.
Yeah, do you know it's interesting because in the US, 40% of all Americans cannot find $400 in an emergency. That's a Federal Reserve stat, right? And that was before COVID. They think that stat now is 80%. And so all around the world, we're seeing, massive unemployment, people under more pressure than ever before. So $1 or $2 a day really matters. If I can our whole mission is that everyone should have their mobile bill and a couple of pay TV subscription platforms paid for by watching ads for 5 minutes a day.
Oh, what a great premise. I love it. Now, what happened, though, that made you want to set this up in the first place? You've told us a little bit about working with SMI and understanding the ad spend, but was there like a light bulb moment? Was there something that happened that made you go, right, I'm actually going to go and do something about this?
Do you know, I think there are moments that are trigger points, but it's really an evolution. I think from the very beginning, I was obsessed with how media connected with us.
Yep.
And, as you say, I've done a lot of businesses over the last 30 years. I am really old.
Amazing businesses.
So when I first started, Jules, it was a fax machine that I was working with. And then I remember when the internet first came in and how, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how insane
No,
that
go
was.
on. It's just a bit of the disconnect from the sound. Yeah.
that we could be connected. And then, Facebook, all of that was only 12 years ago, which is when I was setting Standard Media Index up. And then you saw all of this brand money go into Facebook and the control they had over our data. So I saw very early on the injustice. It was almost, I saw that it was ripping and stripping our value as humans. And, down the pipeline of that is a devalued humanity where we're not in control of ourselves and we're not getting valued. And I became a complete obsessive about restoring the value, about restoring flipping the justice, back to the hands of the people so that we're recognized and valued.
I love it. I can't remember what I was going to say. I was going to ask you something then, but I'm sure it'll come back to me in a minute. Now, you talked about starting with a fax machine. I actually remember you in those days because your sister, Sarah, obviously is one of my best friends. And I really clearly remember you finishing school, putting the fax machine into your bedroom, and I think you won Dulux and Papermate or something straight away. But let's go right back to those days. Can you talk to me about your entrepreneurial journey? Because I think a lot of women think if they start out that their goal is going to be here, they're going to start here and it's going to be this nice straight line and everything's going to be easy and it's all going to follow a simple path. And it just so rarely happens that way. And as a serial entrepreneur, I want to hear about all your stories. So let's start with Communications. How did that even start?
So, do you know, I actually got the sack, Jules. I was working in radio at 3UZ, and I'd come up with a whole strategy for the network to be the sports network. But then I got the sack.
Wasn't that their big mistake?
Was it?
and your big break? But that's one of those. Actually, one of those moments that you go, when you think it's the worst thing in the world, it can sometimes be the best thing. And probably you getting fired, in hindsight, was a fantastic thing.
Yeah, truly. And look, I think I can't play by the rules if I think there's a better way, unfortunately. And so, often in big companies, you're forced and encouraged to play by the rules. I mean, I think the world's really different now and it encourages entrepreneurial sort of mindset. So I left 3UZ, and an old client, a really wonderful client from Nestle, said, I'll give you, love what you're doing. And they gave me that first contract. And then I've got a fax machine in my bedroom and it's sort of built from there. But, it's such a God, that feels so long ago, Jules.
It was so long ago.
It wasn't.
Just thinking about it and thinking, oh my God, like you were 18 or 20 or something ridiculously young when you did that, and it grew and grew. I remember, for those of us who are in Australia or in Melbourne, know Albert Road, and I remember at about 24, you had a building on Albert Road. You had all these staff. How did that all grow, and then why did you decide to move on from there?
Yeah, so I remember actually vividly when everyone sort of had Bay City rollers stuck to their pin boards. I remember having Bill Gates and, Rupert Murdoch, actually, I loved as a media legend. I know, God forbid, right? But actually, as an Australian playing big on the media stage, he was brave enough to, buy assets and do some pretty amazing stuff. I had Bill Gates, Lady Di, and Rupert Murdoch on my wall, Jules. So,
wow. Forget all. I seem to remember your sister Sarah had the police. So you were streets ahead of her.
So, but I think, in those days, it was, bizarrely enough, I never thought of it as a male-female thing. I just saw a better way to do things. And in those days, we were pitching for a lot of the Olympic business for big brands against a lot of the US companies.
Say, that's so extraordinary to be doing that at that age. But so sorry, I interrupted you. You were going on about Olympics.
So I'd never been. The irony is, we made a list of all the Olympic business that we wanted to go after as an iconic sort of Australian business. We wanted General Motors, Holden, and Telstra, and all these really fantastic, iconic brands. And a lot of the US companies were coming in and pitching for it. But weirdly, I'd never been to an Olympic Games, but we pitched and won all this business because what we really understood is how they could connect with the Australian people using this sort of wrap their brand around the business. And then I sold that to business to Clemenger and then moved up to China.
So why move to China? What was there is an obvious thing there where you go, whoa, you were way ahead of the curve, because now everyone wanted, or up until maybe this year, everyone was wanting to be dealing directly with China. But why for you? Why China?
I mean, the reality is I always wanted to be in New York, Jules, but I fell in love.
Via
was the
Shanghai.
Reason that I went to China. But it was when I was there that it was at a very exciting point where you'd get into a lift, for example, and hear all of this Andrew Lloyd Webber music, and yet there'd never been a musical in China. Andrew Lloyd Webber had been trying to come into China for 10 years and never been able to crack the market.
So what made you even think that you would be able to, work with someone like him and bring him into China when he'd been resisted for so long?
So their business models. So what I really love is looking at technology and business models and opportunities. So just gaps in the market and opportunities. And whilst they'd been trying to come in, they'd been using an old business model, which is where you get a local promoter to put up all the money. We said to them, give us the rights, then we'll split the ticket revenues 3 ways, you, us, and the Chinese government, but we're not going to put up the money. We then underwrote it with sponsorship and the whole thing started. And now I heard the other day that there's 60 musical theatres now in China, and it sort of kick-started the whole industry, which is really exciting.
That's absolutely amazing, though, that you kick-started something like that. I also, just as an aside, can't believe that they hadn't had musicals over there before then. Or is it just Western musicals because they have the Chinese theatre, but they literally had nothing.
They'd had no international productions because it was so closed. I remember we did the first one at the Shanghai Grand Theatre and then the Great Hall of the People. So where they actually had all their, communist meetings, we got kicked out. A cast of 120 got kicked out because they had to have a political meeting for the rehearsal, but we made it through to the night. I mean, it was an amazing time, but it was exciting because it was as the world was opening up. I mean, it's hard to imagine a world without Facebook or that kind of connectedness, but we weren't connected as a world.
No, I know. It was still faxes and phone calls.
Yeah. And that's
we didn't even have text.
That's right. And what's exciting about now as we imagine the future, it's great we're all connected. The next phase is about how we use that connectedness to really transform the world and empower each other and use that connectedness for good. And that's
I agree.
Yeah. It's like everything.
Oh, and the other thing is that, of course, with the pandemic, and I think you guys are about to go back into lockdown. We've just come out of it. It does amazing things in terms of community spirit and bringing people together.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it has made so many millions more people that wouldn't have thought of Zoom and being online and being able to sort of conduct meetings or social occasions online have now seen that that's possible.
Yeah.
So I do think it's opening up a whole new world of connectivity. And I hope my other big thing, my insight into what us all being online and on Zoom is that it kind of has made everyone on the same level. So all of a sudden, smart clothes, smart cars, whether you've got a big bum, none of that kind of really matters anymore. It's about your face, what's coming out of your mouth and what's between your ears. Really.
Yeah, absolutely, Jules. I mean, plus, there's more pressure on everyone than ever before, with COVID, and it's just leveled everyone, as you say.
It has, absolutely.
Yeah, and so, but we need change. I mean, from a marketer's perspective, they've been up against, they've had to rebrand COVID, Black Lives Matter and how that's changed what they do. The whole Facebook boycott. 1,200 brands boycotted Facebook over here, which is very exciting for us because it shows a movement and a breaking of the status quo. The status
Yeah.
quo is not okay.
Well, we've got the Australian media trying to take Facebook and Google to court to say that they can't steal all that content, and that they have to pay for it. So it's really, really interesting times. I mean, one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing is I think that the old media model is completely broken, and that something new is emerging, and I want to be part of that, which is really exciting. And obviously, your streets ahead of me in terms of that. So yeah, I'm thrilled that Facebook is that the brands are starting to break up that complete monolith that is really kind of owning all of our content, all of our data and everything else.
Well, what you're doing in Australia with all of that is really transformational, Jules. That's at the leading edge of what needs to happen worldwide. But in addition to charging them, it's actually providing brands a different way, because what we're doing is decoupling the ad from the content. So you can now watch ads on your terms. You get the money and you can choose what you do with it. So it can go into your PayPal account. You can pay off your mobile bill. It can fund your Hulu or Netflix subscription or whatever, but it's putting the person in the power seat and at the same time as doing good. So every time I watch an ad, I know that a donation is being made and I'm getting money. And if I don't want the money, I can pay it forward to someone who does. And so that idea that I can immediately subsidize and help Marcus Rashford's end child food poverty in 5 minutes a day, it's sort of making it easy to do good, because I think so many of us were trapped at home over COVID. And it was, we could see how desperately badly everyone was affected. And yet it was hard to know what to do. We were all struggling to hold our stuff together over that period.
Yeah, and I don't think we're out of it yet, but I love how We Are 8 allows you to take back that control, and I absolutely believe that you're onto something that will hopefully not do what Facebook has done, but become prevalent around the world, and people will be doing it. So let's go back to China. So you were running the not running the Olympics, but winning Olympic accounts. You had taken Andrew Lloyd Webber back into China. So what happened next? What was the next step in the Sue career journey?
So again, in those days, I remember it was, we were using videotape still. So we were recording things and then distributing them. We created 3 television shows in China that we distributed. And what was amazing to me is that you could get such massive distribution. So I became really interested and obsessed with using technology for television distribution. The quality of the programs in China at the time were really average. And so we were doing sort of home renovation shows and travel shows sponsored by Virgin and health shows sponsored by Johnson & Johnson, and these sort of advertorial-like shows that were really powerful. Anyway, left there. And then after a few years, started Standard Media Index. And that was when...
but tell me, why did you start Standard Media Index? Because it was quite groundbreaking. I think now it's kind of used all over the world, but at the time you were really disrupting that industry, weren't you?
Yeah, so, and much to that, I mean, all the TV networks tried to sue us. It was a pretty intense time at the very beginning.
Oh, my God.
Because we were bringing transparency. I mean, essentially, there was no visibility over where the ad dollars were going. There was no clear market picture. So for the first time, by getting real systems inside all the media agencies, and by the way, I'd never built a data infrastructure company before. So I had to do a fast-tracked course on data architecture, data structure, building data stacks, all of data taxonomy, fast-tracked course on all of that, because we built world-class data infrastructure and put it inside the media agencies. that then tracked all of that data. And I learned from some incredibly great people. I think along the way, it's always just about putting great people around you and never worrying about what you don't know, because the reality is things are moving so fast. None of us know what the future's going to look like. We can just do our best at creating it.
Very true.
So built that, very quickly saw that this was very unique, that we could have a clear picture of the market, and wanted to do this in the States. So I started coming to the US every 5 weeks. My patient husband, who also had a company, you know what it's like, Jules, with twins and 3 boys and
I do.
Crazy. I mean, as women.
Yeah, it's full on. It is so full on.
So started coming to the US and managed to close a couple of the agencies here. And then 11 years ago, moved to the US and did the same thing in New York. I mean, what took a year to build in Australia has taken sort of 10 years to build. But it's exciting now. We were in the New York, as Standard Media Index was in the New York Times last week. There was an article and it was talking about all the political data. And I thought, wow, it's taken 10 years to become the market standard.
10 years.
But holy shit. But, can I say that on your show?
Yes, absolutely. And you bloody did it. Well done. I mean, that's the main thing. And the fact that it's still going. So are you still involved with SMI when you started? We Are at 8. Did you jump out? Or are you still sort of straddling both?
No, I'm still on the board. And my wonderful husband, I did recuse myself from the vote, but it was a board decision. He joined the company. He's got an amazing background in sales. So and he's phenomenal. He's been the CEO for the last 3 years and taken it to new heights and really been phenomenal.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I
love that. And that's really interesting that both of you are working in very closely in very, very high powered jobs as well, and very stressful jobs. How's that for just for anyone that might be watching and thinking about it? I know my partner lives in the same house and works in the same house, and I'm like, give me a break sometimes, you know. So how is it for you guys?
Do you know, I think in some ways he's made me completely retarded at certain things, Jules, because he looks after so much. He's so capable and so phenomenal. He's doing an amazing job with SMI, and I'm super inspired by the work he's doing and the work I'm doing. And, you know, our 3 boys are just the love of our lives. So, you know, it all holds together somehow. We both work our backsides off, but it's ripe for the world to change. You know, the average engagement rate on an ad is under 1%, and the average click-through is 0.08%. And
you know, I'm not surprised by that at all, actually. I would have thought that hardly anyone watched ads anymore, and 1% says that I'm not wrong. So, sorry, what were you going to say as an insight into that?
Yes, so it doesn't work. And we're all here thinking, you know, ads do work, but the delivery mechanism, the creative is so fantastic. And then brands are forced to deliver it through Facebook and Google and these really broken ecosystems. So if we can enable these brilliant creators and brilliant ads now to deliver it directly to Jules on your terms, and the money's going to you and making impact. I mean, I'm completely obsessed now in how we change that delivery mechanism, and in the process enable lots of good to happen in the world. Because if we think about, you know, $550 billion, if we're able to put that money back into the pockets of the people and causes, then we can that's life-changing.
Absolutely life-changing, country-changing, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So let's go on a little bit into We Are 8. So you've had this idea, you were completely fed up with SMI and with SMI, but from that, seeing what was going on with the ad spend. So why did you suddenly think We Are 8? Why is it called We Are 8? And how did that all unravel? or
Yes,
ravel
so
up, whatever the
it's
word is.
been a
What was the
journey.
journey like?
It's been a journey, Jules, because it started, as I was looking at Facebook and the social platforms, I was very disturbed, 7 years ago about the misuse of data and all of that. But we started off as a social network, but then we quickly realized that's a mistake. No one needs another social. No one needs another social network.
Right. Yeah.
And that's when we realized what is sticky and what people do want is to be empowered. They want economic empowerment. They want to be valued. And that's when we changed our product. So we invested a lot. We had to then completely change our product.
Well, let's just stop there for a minute and tell me what was that like? What is it like when you suddenly realize, you're, I don't know, maybe a couple of years down the track, hang on, our model's wrong. We're going to have to change everything.
Yeah.
Were you devastated? Did you think this is it? What am I going to do?
Yes.
Or were you just kind of like, no, I know what I'm going to do?
I don't think, look, when you're raising money, I'd been through the stages of raising money and building that because I bootstrapped SMI in the beginning and then raised institutional money. And then there are times when it just doesn't go as planned and it takes too long and everyone gets frustrated and then it does. And then, so it's a bit of it's never a straight line and you're always on edge anyway. With 8, we knew the end goal. So we knew we knew the media ecosystem was broken, distribution ecosystem. We knew we wanted to give people the power, but the way we did it with a social network was wrong. So I think it was a very strong belief that the end goal was right, but the way we executed that first piece was wrong. And
so you hadn't lost your passion for what it was you were trying to achieve. So it was just a case of, okay, well, we're just going to have to pivot.
Yes.
Using that hideous word.
I know, it is hideous, but it's very true.
It's
because,
very true. Yeah.
You've got to, every single business that's successful has pivoted one or multiple times, even the big ones that, we see, and they've all had failures along the way as well. And I think it's the ability to say, that's not working that way. Let's draw the line. Let's shrink as even though that's really tough because you have to let everything go. We went back to, a core of 4 people and had to rethink it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, rethink it, raise more funding, and then grow again and build out. And now we've tested our current product with 1 million people here in the US. We tested it with 20 brands really successfully, and now we're scaling in a big way with a mobile operator that we haven't announced yet, but it's a big UK mobile operator.
Huge.
And so,
oh, good.
But
And what about Australia? Are we going to get somebody behind it here to push it out, or are we going to do that through She's the Boss?
No. Yes, Jules, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, let's go. I'll just tell the whole of the country now.
So yes, we'll talk about that offline because I think the goal in the UK is to scale very quickly from January. We've got a mission to get to 5 million people in the UK by June next year, and then it's taking it global. I think people are ready.
Yeah,
people are ready for this now. So
I 100% agree, and really, for you to have spent 10 years building this in some ways makes it even more perfect now because, we don't want to say COVID has been a blessing, but it has in some ways.
Yeah.
And one of the ways is that people are completely fed up with these big organizations trying to run our lives, I think.
Yeah. And it's not okay anymore. And not just the economics. The economics for sure, but the impact. We've got climate issues, and yet, we've got
big ones.
And, there's 800 million people on the planet that can't access fresh water. There's 3.5 million children in the UK now that cannot access food. Marcus Rashford, a big football player, Man United player, it's his big thing to end child food poverty that we're really wanting to support. And, You know, 50 million people in the US, Jules, can't access food right now. So we need women. We need women
Yes.
with compassion and innovation to help navigate the future. We're living in a we're living with Facebook and all the technology platforms constructed by men. So there's no balance in the world that we live in. Now it's time to live in to live in constructs that are compassionate and uniting and built by women.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I feel, you know, the more I've probably interviewed about 70 or 80 women now, and the things that women are doing are basically all those things that have been broken are definitely being looked at. There's one group that I am, and I think it comes out of the States, called Singularity University,
Yeah,
that I've been
fantastic.
doing some stuff with here, and they are amazing. And their mission is to change 1 billion lives. And I love it. Like, stop this. I want to make my little small thing do. Like, let's just change everything.
Fully. Peter Diamandis, right? So they are so brilliant. And our whole mission, by the way, Jules, is 10,000 brands and 1 billion people. We want 1 billion people paying off their mobile bills with our technology. And
I love it.
What's interesting is when we looked at the 10,000 brands, what we've just built and we're launching in December is the Facebook buying engine where brands buy the ads. We've now built our self-serve engine, self-serve brand engine, which means we can have thousands of brands. So all of those brands that boycotted Facebook now have somewhere to go and can buy ads and buy campaigns through the system.
Now, talk to me a little bit, though, about the data and what you're doing with We Are 8, because I think we all have a fear now that if we're going to go into other areas that they're going to steal our data as well. What are you doing to offset that, I guess?
I mean, the reality is, Jules, the ship sailed. All our data is out there, and they're everywhere. And when we did a lot of research around it, and people don't mind giving up their data. What people do want is respect. They want to be valued. They want to be paid. They want to know what's happening to their data. So what we've
that transparency, I think, is really important. It's shocking when you hear that Facebook has gone and sold 500 million names and you're like, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
There was no discussion with me about that.
Yeah, it's transparency and control. In fact, we made a decision. So we collect a lot of data as people are on our platform, but we use it solely for the purpose of helping you make more money and make more impact. So we made a decision that we're not going to go and buy third-party data and all these other data sets behind your back. And we're only going to use information you tell us with the knowledge that it's going to be used for your good, which is what the 8 is, by the way.
Okay. So with what's going on in the States at the moment, and for anyone who's watching, today is the day that we are assuming we're going to find out who the next president is. One of the things that has been really, really shocking, particularly watching some of the documentaries on YouTube and on Netflix, are about the manipulation that's being done by those political parties without us knowing it. So, you know, that we're getting these kind of feeds of information that, yes, we do want things that interest us, but we want it to be even-handed. So how are you going to manage that with We Are 8?
So the filter bubbles, 8, we're not a social platform yet.
Right, okay.
Yet.
Yep.
But, you know, it'd be really interesting if we ended up reversing into it. We do have inside the app is your wallet. We do have a community feed, which is interestingly uniting a lot of people. But so we're not really having to handle we collect a lot of data, but we're not having to, we're using it for your best interests always to get you money.
Right.
So we're completely transparent about the money we make, about how your data is used. It's transparency, Jules. I mean, the social...
I was actually... Yeah, as you were saying that, I was thinking transparency, I think, is it. That's the way I feel that the media has made a big mistake by not innovating over the last few years is this lack of transparency. And so we just get fed things that they think that we want rather than giving us what we actually do want. And which is why on-demand video channels, I think, have worked so well, because you can go in and choose what you want. Although when they start using their algorithms to feed you things again, it's really annoying.
Yeah.
I really hate that kind of, maybe
Do
it's
you
just
know,
me though.
it's amazing though. The algorithms aren't perfect because they're taking the data behind our backs. What's really fascinating, because we're working with a whole lot of AI PhDs out of Columbia and Harvard, actually, who are building our algorithms. When you work with zero-party data and people actually, zero-party is when it's, I'm giving it to you or I'm selling it to you, I'm giving it to you freely. When you work with that, when people give you something, you get the right information back. So you've got permission to give them information back because they're telling you something in the first place. So there's this really interesting conversation. They're not suddenly springing something on you.
No, go on.
Yeah, they're not tracking behind your back and springing something from left field. It's like, holy shit, I bought that pair of shoes last week. Don't spring something on me that you think I want now. Even Google get their algorithm wrong because it's all scraped. And the next evolution.
Yeah, right. And of course, if Google asked me, if we were being asked to fill out a questionnaire to say what sort of things would you like in your feed, it would be such a different situation.
Yeah.
And we'd be happy if, there's the odd glitch, but really this, as you say, lack of transparency and just feeding you stuff and also distorting things. I mean, I'm shocked by what's been happening politically using social platforms.
There's an amazing woman, Carol Cadwallader, out of the UK, who's got a fantastic TED talk on how Facebook manipulated the whole political system and destroyed the democracy in the UK.
I think I've seen it. Was she a journalist?
Yes. She's fabulous.
I think she's done a documentary on Netflix as well now about that.
Wow.
But I remember her going down about the, wasn't there a whole lot of sort of hysteria in some areas around Turkish people coming to live there, and it was all proven.
It was one of them.
She proved that it was absolute rubbish.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so they target specific people, and that's what we've seen with voting, and Facebook is used to target people in political ways. And so her whole argument was that they destroyed our democracy, which they have. And so all of this is happening, Jules, behind the scenes. The ones that control the data, Facebook, Google, Amazon, they're all controlled by very few guys, men.
Yes.
And there's no women there's no women at the table here. And despite any government outcome, it's these corporations that really have the control. So we need other brands to step up and the money and muscle of brands with the voices of the people to really say no more.
And also to have a woman at the helm, exactly as you say, because what the ultimate irony is that Facebook has been absolutely powered by women. I mean, there is no doubt at all. The mums jumped on it, then the women jumped on it. It is our platform. I mean, I'm not saying, and so is Instagram, I would say, is the other one. But yet, though, they are run, and I'd never thought about this before you said it, by men who are making the decisions about something that women are kind of populating.
For sure, Jules. I mean, women have powered their entire wealth, and yet the men have controlled the algorithms that decide.
No representation. Yeah.
How many people see your post when you post it on Instagram or on Facebook? They control that. So they completely suppress and control the entire population. How many people see your post, when they see it, all of that. And for this Facebook boycott really not to have worked, Facebook said, we will continue to do whatever we want and let whoever we want post, even if it's Nazi shocking content. What we've realized is they will continue to do terrible things and enable terrible things.
So we've got to get we've got to tell those brands how much that we want them to get off and get onto a platform like We Are 8 that will support us, where it's much more transparent. We have much more control. And Facebook can, I mean, I love it for the connection, but I hate that manipulation.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the same for everyone.
Yeah. And we're not saying get off Facebook to people. We're just saying spend 5 minutes a day, get paid, and help end child food poverty or help support the climate.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing that, you're being part of a community that's united for a better world. And that can morph into some pretty wonderful things, because, as you say, women unite and make the world go round. When
we do, we're the ones who have the babies. We're the ones who make it all go round. We're the ones bringing up the next generation to a large extent. And yet our voice up until, I genuinely feel, and certainly some of the women that I know that are into woo-woo are saying it is the rise of the feminine, and that there's something happening in the planets, but you can kind of feel it in your guts as well.
Fully. Do you know who I loved growing up? Do you remember Anita Roddick, who founded The Body Shop?
I do, yes.
So she was, right, in the 90s, she was creating, she was getting size 16 models to be the models. And she was always at the forefront of
packaging and healthy products, and you can choose how much you want, and we'll cut it into slices for you or whatever. Love it.
Everything that we're seeing with the North Face and all of these brands, she really set purpose-driven organizations and the growth, that it was good business to be purpose-driven. She really set that back in the 90s.
Amazing.
I'm going to do a post about her, because I really feel that she's never the impact that she made was never recognized. She'd be loving what's happening now in the world, and the desire for companies to be more purposeful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that women will drive this purpose-driven thing, which is why, I just want to lift up the other women around us and help them and help them achieve what it is that they have the potential to achieve, because we really can change the world.
Do you know what I mean?
It is time.
I love you, Jules, because one of the things I have always adored about you is you have always been an elevator. You always lift up everyone around you. You're such an optimist, but you always elevate everyone around you. And it's a rare, beautiful thing, Jules.
Oh, thank you very much, Sue. Now, we haven't got very much longer, but because you have run so many companies and done so many amazing things, and you are still totally my hero, are there a few things, if you were talking to, say, here we go, you'll love this. Imagine I'm 20 and about to start out again. In all the years of experience you've had, are there a few tips that you would give any young woman starting out? Because I'm always saying just do it, just go for it. But, you've learned a lot more than I have and had a lot more success. So what tips would you offer?
I think fully go for it. But before you go for it, think about what it is that you want to change. Everything is possible. But what is it? What is the thing that you are really obsessed with? Because even if I look at those 4 businesses over the 30 years, it's been a singular thread. The singular thread is I have wanted to transform media. I've always felt the distribution is broken, and I've wanted to bring brands and people together to make positive impact. That's sort of been a thread. And by the way, how we get water to 800 million people, how we can get food to more people. There have been things that I've been really obsessed with. So the first thing is, what is it that really obsesses you, so that you wake up in the morning and you can't stop thinking about that problem, you can't stop thinking about that challenge and a potential solution to it. And then is it really a business, is the second question. Is that just a problem that I care about, or is there a business opportunity in here? Because I speak to a lot of Gen Zs and millennials, and there's a lot of, they want to do good, but there's a lot of friction between the non-profit, do I create a non-profit, or do I create a business? And,
Absolutely.
you know,
And the other thing I think that, I've certainly mentored a whole lot of people at uni. And the other thing that I see them do, and I love them for it, but the naivety just makes me laugh, is that they'll say, they have their purpose. There is so many people who have a purpose now, which I love. And then they go, and then they honestly believe, as I think I did when I was younger, if I build it, they'll come.
Yeah.
We know that this is a problem. So if I can solve the problem, then everyone's going to pay me to do that. And I was watching a whole lot of people pitching at RMIT last year, and they would literally go, "This is the business idea," and I go, "Wow, fantastic!" And I go, "How are you going to promote it?" And they'll go, "I'm going to just do posts on social media, but I'm not going to let everyone in. We're going to have just particular people." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" So one of the things I'd say is work out how the hell you're going to market it.
Yeah, fully. When we were taught a million years ago, the 4 Ps, right? Product. Make sure your product is really good and there's a demand and a need for it. Price. Make sure it's priced well. Promotion. How are you going to market it? And place, I think it was. So where are you doing it? And how are you going to distribute
Which mattered more in those days than it does now. Yeah.
And those principles, daggy and old though they are really good. I mean, I even found myself when our social media network failed monumentally, it was, okay, let's come back to our product. What is a product that delivers consumers and people control? What is the product that meets this need? And what is a product that gets brands a much better way to deliver their ad message? So, I think it's coming back to those base principles too for people. And then just put lots of people around you. Push yourself, obsess every day, don't be scared to reach out to people you admire. I wish I had have written to Anita Roddick. I did write to Bill Gates. He didn't reply back. But, I think don't be brave. And put people around
and
you.
Don't give up, I think, is the other thing, because there is no business that is going to disrupt an industry that is not going to have a whole heap of people that say it can't be done, you shouldn't be doing it, there's no way that you're going to make it, why are you bothering, it's not going to work. And you have got to believe that you are onto something that that you can do and that will make a difference, I think.
Absolutely, Jules. Don't give up. Do question yourself, though. Don't live in la la land. Question yourself, and
true.
Then the naysayers, get away from me. I now need to drive this home.
Fantastic.
So, Jules, you are so fabulous.
So are you. God, we sound like we're the Mutual Admiration Society.
We need it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is you are just an incredible woman. This has been a brilliant interview. You're just so generous. I love what it is that you're doing. I can't wait to promote this and tell everyone about We Are 8. And I wish you all the best in the UK. I have no doubt it will take off. So I'm really looking forward to, hearing about it everywhere in Australia, which I'm sure won't be long, especially when we put this out. So thank you so much for being my guest.
Of course. We'll have to get She's the Boss over in New York. You can interview a lot of great women here too. They need the elevation.
Oh, my God, I would love to. That's it. I mean, I guess my mission is to give women a voice and to also put the spotlight and make people aware of all these incredible women out there doing like really, really amazing things as an inspiration to think, there is nothing you can't do.
Everything is possible, Jules. And it's actually up to us as women to create the world that we want our kids to live in.
That's exactly right. And on that note, look, I'm going to have to say goodbye, but thank you so much. For those of you that have watched the show and liked it, would you please subscribe to the channel, make comments, like the post, the more activity, the better. Also, if you have enjoyed this and you're interested in hearing more, I have a She's the Boss Chats podcast. We have loads and loads and loads. I think there's about 70 interviews so far and going. So with incredible female founders. So please go and subscribe to that and listen to some of those. We also run regular weekly Zoom lunches for female founders, and you're more than welcome to come and join us. And you can find it all through she'stheboss.com.au.